We're all chasing that millionaire dream, aren't we? But what if I told you that for almost everyone who actually gets there, it's a trap? Today, we're going to dig into the hard data that separates the illusion of wealth from true financial freedom.
So if someone walked up to you and said that 9% of Americans are millionaires, would you buy it? It sounds incredible, right? Nearly 1 in 10 people you pass on the street hitting that legendary 7-figure milestone. It feels like this massive success story. But that number, it's hiding a crucial and frankly very misleading detail.
And here it is, the reality check. While 9% might have a net worth of $1 million on paper, only about 2%, that's just 1 in 50 people, have that money in cash and investments that they can actually use. This tiny group, they're the ones with the real financial power.
This, right here, is what we call the millionaire illusion. It's this huge, dangerous gap between what a balance sheet says you're worth and the actual cash you have to live your life, to jump on opportunities, or to handle a real emergency.
Okay, so to really wrap our heads around this illusion, we have to get our definition straight. Let's break down the difference between the kind of wealth that just looks good on paper and the kind of wealth that actually gives you freedom.
So most of us track net worth. You know the formula, assets minus liabilities. It throws everything in the pot, your house, your car, all of it. But the problem is, it makes no distinction between money you can use and money that's completely trapped.
Now this is the number that really matters. Investable assets, or you could call it liquid wealth. This is the stuff you can get to quickly, your cash, your stocks, your bonds. This is the money that can actually work for you, that lets you grab an opportunity or cover a crisis without having to sell the roof over your head.
So here's the bottom line. Net worth creates a perception of wealth. Investable assets, on the other hand, give you actual control. One is basically a vanity metric. The other is a measure of your true financial power.
And this exact distinction leads to a very common and very stressful situation. Let's take a look at how this actually plays out in the real world for millions of these so-called millionaires.
So take a look at this. It's an incredibly common scenario. Someone owns a home worth, say, $900,000, and they've got about $150,000 in a retirement account. On paper, they've made it. They're a millionaire. But in reality, life feels pretty tight. Property taxes are climbing, the house always needs repairs, and a sudden job loss would be absolutely catastrophic. They are a millionaire with 0 options. This quote just puts it perfectly. Liquid wealth is like oxygen. You don't really think about it when it's there, but the moment it's gone, you feel like you're completely suffocating. It doesn't matter how impressive your net worth looks on a spreadsheet.
So, if liquid wealth is the real goal, when do most people actually get there? Well, the journey isn't some steady upward climb. Economists call it the wealth curve. Now, honestly, it's a lot more frustrating than you probably think.
The data shows a long, slow grind. I mean, the median net worth for someone under 35 is just $39,000. By your mid-40s, it's only $135,000. Even when you're in your mid-50s, the average person is still only about a quarter of the way to $1 million. That means for most of your working life, it just feels like you're barely making any progress. The real surge doesn't happen until retirement is right around the corner. And part of the reason for this slow climb is actually pretty simple. We're saving less, way less. Back in the 1980s, households saved around 10% of their income. Today, that number has been chopped in half, down to just 5%. That's a massive headwind when you're trying to build any kind of wealth. So what's the result? Becoming a millionaire has shifted from being a mid-career milestone to something you might achieve right at the end of your working years, if you achieve it at all. The average age today is 61. For most people, that finish line is decades away. Okay, so if the path is so long and so slow, what's the secret? How do you actually speed up the curve? The answer lies in the most powerful force in finance, but it demands one thing above all else: patience.
You know, the first decade or two of investing can feel like you're pushing a boulder uphill. You're putting money in month after month, and you see very little change. This is the psychological trap. Because these slow years, they are not a waste. They are the engine room where you build the foundation for all the explosive growth that comes later.
Here's how that engine really works. In the beginning, nearly all your portfolio's growth comes from your own savings, your contributions. But over decades, something kind of magical starts to happen. Your money starts making money, and then that money starts making its own money. And eventually, this compounding effect becomes the primary driver of your wealth, doing way more of the heavy lifting than you ever could.
So, this brings us to the playbook. What are the specific habits that separate the truly liquid 2% from everybody else?
Well, it isn't about getting lucky or taking high-risk bets. It's about having a reliable, disciplined system.
And here's something that might surprise you. The professions that consistently produce millionaires aren't just Wall Street traders. They're often teachers, engineers, and accountants. Their advantage isn't a massive income. It's consistent, rational behavior over decades.
The system itself is actually deceptively simple. First, automate your savings and investments so it happens without you even thinking about it. Second, you have to consciously control lifestyle creep. Don't let your spending rise with every single pay raise. And third, treat unproductive debt like the enemy that it is.
And that lifestyle creep thing? It's not just a problem for lower incomes. A shocking 1/3 of households earning over $200,000 a year still live paycheck to paycheck. This just proves that without a system, even a high income can't save you from being cash poor.
So after looking at all this data, we can finally come back to our central theme and redefine what we're actually aiming for, because it's not about hitting some magic number.
True wealth isn't a number. It's control over your time. It's having options when life throws you a curveball. It's the flexibility to design a life you actually want to live, not one you're forced into by your finances. That is the real prize.
So I'll leave you with a question to really think about. Look at your own finances and ask yourself, if my wealth isn't accessible tomorrow, how much of it is truly mine today? The answer reveals the difference between the illusion of being rich and the reality of being free.